الله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ به تعالى من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن سيدنا محمدا عبد الله ورسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم أرسله الله بشيرا ونذيرا بين يدي الساعة من يطع الله ورسوله فقد رشد ومن يعص الله ورسوله فإنه لا يضر إلا نفسه ولا يضر الله شيئا أما بعد معاشر المسلمين أوصيكم ونفسي أولا بتقوى الله عز وجل فإن الله تعالى يقول بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما إن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلال. In this khutbah, I want to address the fact that we are now in a new calendar year. I know this is not old news, but it's the first time this year, this calendar year, that I'm speaking before you on this minbar. So for me, it is new that I'm speaking with you. Before I get into the topic of this khutbah, I want to just alert you to the fact that the school across the street are fed up with people misusing their parking spots to the extent that their teachers cannot find a spot to park in some days. So I want to appeal to you, brothers and sisters. If you happen to have parked in the school parking lot today, you didn't know, that's all right. But I would like you to get up now and go move your car. Because we're not allowed to park there at all, but they're allowing us a concession in the evenings when they don't have school in progress. But when they have school in progress, nobody should park there. You're blocking the space and preventing the teachers from finding a parking spot. Moreover, you should be aware that there are two areas. One is a parking area. The other area is the access to their delivery space. Some brothers go and park there sometimes. And if you do that, then you are blocking the spot where emergency vehicles may need to come in case there is a fire in the school or something such thing. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect all of the institutions of this great country, this mosque, the school across the street, and every other place where people gather. But be aware that we should not misuse things, but we as Muslims should reflect the highest moral character, the greatest ethical principles, so that when people see us, they should see that these are embodiments of goodness. I want to be like this person. So if you happen to have parked there, please move your vehicle. Do it now. Do not wait until the end of the prayer. That may be too late. In fact, it may be towed before that. So now, we are in a new year. And in terms of the Islamic dating, today is the 19th day of Jumada al-Ula. Then what will follow is Jumada al-Thaniya, and then we will have Rajab and Sha'ban and Ramadan before very long. Inshallah, you're looking forward to that? All right, so in this new year, I think we need to be forward thinking. We need to learn our lessons from the past. We need to understand where we are going and what is our place as Muslims in this new context. Please ignore the noise. The door is being repaired, as you know. It's a bad day for us to have them repair it, but we've been waiting for a long time. So how do we understand our place in this new context? Some Muslims have the approach as if everyone is against us. And if you have that approach, then you in your own mind will think that you are against everybody else too. If you're thinking everybody's against me, well then the flip side is that you're going to be against everybody else. Don't have that mentality. Not everybody is against us. I was in a room full of many people in a mosque, and this was an event in which many non-Muslims came to offer their sympathies with Muslims and to befriend Muslims. Many of these were people from local churches. They were religious folks. But despite the fact that they were of a different religion, they came to show their solidarity with Muslims. A little girl raised her hand to ask me a question, a little Muslim girl. And her question was, Imam, why do people hate us? And it came across in a way as if like everybody hates us. So I had to point out to her, little girl, if you look around the room here, you will see that this room is full of people who actually love us. And there was a loud clap in the room because people recognize that that's what they are. They're not haters of Muslims, but in fact they're sympathetic towards Muslims. Not everybody hates us. There may be a few out there, and every once in a while the local law has to step in and deal with them. Because they have gone over and above their bounds in the criticism of Islam to the extent that it translates into hate. And hate speech is a crime in Canada and in many other places as well. And so the local law has to deal with them. So we should not have this mentality in this new year and in a new era that people are so much against us that we also have to respond by being against them. A case in point is that apparently a Muslim brother made a video showing that he bought a roll of toilet tissue, or maybe a pack of toilet tissue, but he's showing one roll of the tissue. And he says, look, this has the name of Allah imprinted on it. So what is his solution? We should boycott Marks and Spencer and so on and so forth. So if you look at it, you see that it's an interpretation that this is the name of Allah there. I've searched online and I found that some British newspapers reporting about this say that the spokespersons from Marks and Spencer are saying that this was not intended to be the name of God. This was intended to be a representation of the aloe vera leaf. And that particular roll of that package of tissue paper is marketed as an aloe vera roll of tissue. For whatever reason, maybe they want to say that it has some kind of lanolin or something like this embedded in the paper to make it soft. Whatever their logic. But now, if you evaluate the whole thing, you realize that we are in an age of commercialism. Everyone is trying to sell you their product. And nobody in his right mind is going to produce something that people won't buy. They're going to produce the thing that people will buy. And if they know that Muslims will not like their product, they know the statistics. You think they don't study this? They know how many Muslims live in the United Kingdom. They know how many Muslims live in Canada. And they know what makes people buy things. They study. They put people in a room and they show them different colors. How do people respond to these colors? Now they know this is the kind of color we're going to use for our packaging and for our materials. The smell of things. How do people respond to various smells? This is being studied. They want to sell you their product, so they're not going to make something deliberately that you won't like. So if they put that out, even if by mistake, let's say they found this symbol and they saw, that looks nice, it's a nice symbol, let's put that on our toilet paper. There, stamp, stamp, stamp. All right, now we look at it, we say the name of Allah is there. The simple thing is that we just have to let them know. Let them know that this is the name of Allah. We don't use it on things like toilet paper. And of course, we expect that you're going to change this. It doesn't have to come across as a threat. From the moment you tell them that this is something we don't like, the wheels of their production system are going to start turning. They're going to want to produce the thing that you like and that you will buy. So it doesn't have to be us versus them. Sometimes it's just a matter of giving them information. Now take it to another level of discussion here. Is it really the name of Allah on this toilet tissue? If they said it's the aloe vera leaf, okay, accept it. That's their intention, to put an aloe vera leaf. You look at it and you're seeing, oh, looks very close to the name of Allah. I can't use this in this way. The toilet tissue, with something like the name of Allah on it, I can't use it. Even if it's close, I don't want to use it myself. But now, should I go and alert other Muslims, don't use this paper because it's got the name of Allah on it? No. If the other Muslim looks at it and he says, oh, this looks like the name of Allah, I can't use this. That's another Muslim who's not using it. But don't publicize this information. What happens when you publicize the information is that you make it incumbent on the other Muslims to also stop using this. So now you have made another thing haram for your fellow Muslims. And it is mentioned in hadith that the worst person is the one who asks about something, and because of his asking about it, the thing becomes haram. It is not Allah's wish to make everything haram for us. And some people, by their investigation and digging, they make more and more things haram for the Muslims. So that wherever the Muslim goes, he finds this is haram, that is haram, the other thing is haram. So then where am I going to turn? If you find that this is objectionable, okay, you don't use it. But don't make some noise about it. It is mentioned that the Prophet ﷺ used to tie his waistband tightly and get up for prayer in the last nights of Ramadan. And one night, Ali radiallahu anh was sleeping. And the Prophet ﷺ deliberately did not wake him up. But he let somebody else go to wake Ali up. And the rationale was that if the Prophet ﷺ went to wake him up, he in his sleepishness, if he refused the command or the instruction of the Prophet ﷺ or the request of the Prophet ﷺ, that would be bad. Bad for him. But if he refused somebody else, it wouldn't be bad. You see, so sometimes we used to have to see the situation and use a little bit of hikmah of our wisdom. You don't like the product, don't use it yourself. You have a conscientious objection to it, leave it alone. But don't make it incumbent upon other Muslims to also abandon this product. And abandon that store. Now the Muslims will feel, I can't shop here because some of the Muslims said that we Muslims have to abandon this shop. We have to boycott this shop. Now you can't even shop at this store. You want something else, not even this toilet paper, but you can't even go into the store to buy something else. Now you're feeling, I can't even go close to the store because other Muslims are going to look at me and say, this is one of those who are selling us out. He is going to shop at the same store which we said we should boycott. And now, what have you done? You have given something else for those who hate Islam to whip you with. Because now they know how to get you. If they make any representation that is close to the word Allah, they know that's going to make you jump. So sometimes they're going to do it just to tease you, to see how you dance. So Muslims should not react emotionally to such things, but rather we should react with wisdom, with circumspection, seeing the whole big picture around us. My brothers and sisters in Islam, I just spent many hours filling out an application for funding for our summer school program. Canadian government is funding summer jobs so we can hire young people to teach in our summer school and to perform other tasks that are important to our masjid. If we had the money, we fund all of this ourselves. We don't have to go through the application process. We don't have the money, so we go through the application process. And going through that application process, we represent ourselves, our community, and our masjid in a certain way. As if we are integrated in this society, that we are one with Canadian principles, customs, and laws. So when we do that in the application, I want you to know from this mimbar that I'm serious about that. And I want you to cooperate with me in representing this masjid, this community, as a part of the Canadian landscape. We don't have to see ourselves as us versus them. But we have to understand, what are those unchanging principles of our religion? And what are the immediate applications that could differ from one society to another? Now I dress like this long gown. This long gown is not worn by all Muslims all over the world. Equally pious Muslims, Muslims who are more righteous than I am, may be dressed like my brother Raqib, okay, with shorter kurta and pajama. It's still a Muslim dress. When one looks at it, one would know, okay, this is a Muslim. So the Pakistani dress is different from the Saudi dress. The Malaysian style has a shorter kurta still, but a much more baggy pants. There are different styles that Muslims have adopted in many different parts of the world to represent the decency in Islamic clothing. They're all Islamic. Now, it requires for us to think more carefully about the Canadian styles of clothing for both men and women. When it comes to women, we now think there is one particular pattern, and we see this represented all over the world. The Muslim woman has a similar looking hijab all over the world. But does it have to be the same all over the world? Why couldn't the style of hijab be different for a woman in Canada? Why couldn't it be such that if a Canadian non-Muslim woman is thinking, Islam is a good idea, okay, what do I have to do in order to be a Muslim? So what clothing are we going to give her? An entirely different set of clothing that she has ever grown up with and that she has experienced in her life? Or can there be a simple choice between things that are available in Canada for decent women to wear, so that she picks the thing that a decent Canadian woman would wear, and that would be recognized by us as a Muslim Canadian woman? Why couldn't it be such? We have to understand that there are certain broad principles when it comes to clothing. The Quran does not give you specific details about the outlines and the extent of the woman's clothing. Those details come from hadith, and among the hadith there are various levels of authenticity and also various levels of clarity. Much of it actually comes from interpretations of both the Quran and the Hadith. Muslim scholars will write and tell you that the Muslim woman's garment should have these 8 principles, and these are the extent of the covering and so on. Those details are found in interpretations by human beings, good human beings, for good reasons, but they are interpretations. And we need to recognize the difference between the original principle and the detailed interpretation. If we do not, then we will continue to see ourselves as foreign elements wherever we are. There will be clashes between us and society. Right now, something is going on in Kingston, Ontario. A young man was arrested. More than one person was arrested. One is actually a minor. Some are children of a refugee family from Syria. And the RCMP and other police officials met with a group of imams in the Kingston area this morning because they said, we want to share this information with the imams before we make it public. And according to their plan, at 1 o'clock today, they would have made a public declaration in a news conference about the details of this arrest. I could not hear that public announcement because that's the time that I started to speak before you on this minbar. But from the background information that we have, this case so far seems to be related to the safety of people in Canada, and in other words, it seems to be a case of terrorism. So we have to ask ourselves, brothers and sisters, why is it that our youth are being turned to violent acts, threatening the safety of their fellow Canadians and others? Some have a misunderstanding that somehow Islamic law is something that is so different that Muslims cannot live here as decent citizens, accepting the institutions and the policies of this great country. So there's a woman who went into a Canadian Tire shop in Scarborough, wielding a knife, starting to stab people. And she said, "This is for ISIS." She represented herself as a supporter of ISIS. And how does she support ISIS? By killing people who are shopping in a Canadian Tire store. Can you believe this nonsense? And then, when she was brought to trial, she says, "I do not accept the legitimacy of this court." She wants to be tried by a Sharia court. So how is she going to find that in Canada? My dear sister, if you want to be tried in a Sharia court, why are you even in Canada? Why don't you go where there is a Sharia court? Live according to Sharia where it is implemented, if you can find such a place where the pure Sharia is implemented, and then you will be tried by a Sharia court. Similar was the case of a man, I don't know, was he in Ottawa or Quebec? He was charged and tried for plotting to blow up a via rail train. When he was brought to trial, similarly, he said he has to be tried by the Quran. So you're going to impose on a Canadian justice system that they're going to try you according to the Quran? Do they even try anybody according to the Bible? What nonsense do you have in your mind to think that you're going to impose on the Canadian justice system that they try you according to the Quran? You're living in a dream world. Muslims have to understand the realities in which we live. Just within the last couple of weeks, the CBC did a documentary published under the Fifth Estate television program, in which it was shown that there are some Muslims here who are practicing plural marriages. Now we know that historically plural marriages were done and were quite common. Shown in the Bible. Some biblical heroes had many wives. Said in the Bible, in the book of Kings, that Sulaiman alayhi salam, had 700 wives and 300 concubines. The number seems exaggerated, but nonetheless it is known that in the past there were many circumstances in which men had multiple wives. There were good reasons for that. One is the obvious shortage of men, because most women, given the choice, will choose to be married to a man who is going to be her husband, and she's going to be the only wife of this man. Every woman would like to have a man to herself. It's natural. But in situations where there is a shortage of men, naturally people will think differently. And in the past, there were many circumstances in which men were killed off. Men were killed when they went hunting. If there was a national or a natural calamity or some sort of disaster, it'll be the men who would be in the front lines battling to save their women and children. So many men will die if there's a catastrophe. Let's say there's a mudslide. So the women and children will be rushed to safety first. The men would be the first ones to be killed. If there is a battle, men will kill men, and the women and children will be left. Then who is going to take care of the widows and their orphans? This is why the Quran puts it in this way. In the 4th chapter of the Quran, the 3rd ayah. وَإِنْ خِفْتُمْ أَلَّا تُقْسِطُوا فِي الْيَتَامَى. If you fear that you will not do justice to the orphans, فَانْكِحُوا مَا طَابَ لَكُم مِّنَ النِّسَاءِ مَثْنَى وَثُلَاثَ وَرُبَاعَ. Then marry the women who are suitable for you in 2s and 3s and 4s. So it's not a blanket statement of the Quran that every man has the right to marry up to 4. This is how people have come to interpret it. They have misunderstood the Quran. In the Quran there is an if-then clause. If you fear that you will not do justice to the orphans, then marry. If, then. It's not a blanket, go ahead and marry. It's if, then. If you fear you will not do justice to the orphans. So I want to ask the brothers who are insisting on marrying a second and the third and the fourth, where are the orphans that you're trying to protect? It'll be a different situation. You can imagine after the Battle of Uhud, when 70 of the Shuhada were killed. You see the situation. There are orphans in the society, and a welfare society was not yet set up. Not like today that you can easily get a welfare check from the government. There was no government to give you a welfare check at that time. The Muslims were few. Most of them were immigrants, having left their homes and properties behind in Mecca. They were in a new land in Medina. So when 70 of them were killed, who's going to take care of their widows and orphans? So the Quran is saying to the men at that time, take on more responsibility. You have a wife already, but look at the wife of your fallen comrade. Look at his children. Take care of those children. That was the point. Not an open and blanket declaration that all men, by divine right, have the chance now to marry up to 4 women. And this is how it came to be presented. That's a mistake. It's a misunderstanding. So somebody say, but the Prophet ﷺ had many wives. And that's true. But did you know that there are some things that the Quran gave specifically to the Prophet ﷺ because of his particular office? Not because he was a man, but because the office demanded it. In the Prophet's office as the leader of the Muslims at that time, he had the responsibility to cement relationships with many different tribes and peoples. And one of the ways in which he did this was by intermarrying. By marrying a woman from another people, he then cemented a relationship with those people. So that non-Muslim historians of religion, such as Karen Armstrong and William Montgomery Watt, they point out that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, I say peace be upon him, they say that he married largely for political and social reasons. So the brothers who are marrying today are not marrying for this political and social reasons. Mostly they're marrying because of hawa, of desire. And by doing so, they hurt their first wife. They marry the first wife when she was young. She gives him all his children. And then when she gets a little bit older, he starts feeling itchy. He starts looking around. And then he goes marries a young one. So what happens is that he hurts the feelings of the older one, of his first wife. Notice that the Prophet ﷺ did not hurt the feelings of his first wife. It is related that he was 25 years old when he first got married to Khadija radiallahu anha, and she remained his only wife until he was 50 years old. Then she passed away. It's after her death, that is when he married additional wives, for the reasons that we pointed out already. So he did not hurt his first wife. In fact, he kept her alive in his own memory. He loved her so much that the other wives, especially Aisha, would become jealous of the way in which the Prophet, peace be upon him, remembered Khadija, and the way he showed kindness towards the relatives of Khadija. Anything that reminded him of Khadija, that moved his feelings, because he had feelings, he loved her. You don't hurt the person that you love. So love that wife that you have. Stick with the one. Be kind to her. 10 years ago, our sister Noor Javid, writing in the Toronto Star, cited a Muslim woman who has gone through this experience where her husband called her from another country and said, you know what, honey, I've got married again. She said, you cannot imagine how it feels to know that right now your husband is in the arms of another woman. So we have to ask how it feels. We have to talk to our women folk. A lot of Islam has been decided by men only. We have to include the woman's perspective and ask them, how do they feel about this? Some brothers will say, oh, it's a good thing that Islam allows you to marry 4 women, because what if your first wife is barren? She doesn't bear you a child. So now you can have a child with a second wife. Okay, so now think about it from the woman's perspective. So you married this woman, you didn't know she was barren, now you're trying to have children, you cannot. She's doing her best to please you, she wants to have children for you, she cannot. Now she learns that you're going to marry another woman. How is she going to feel? Rejected, cast away. as though she were useless to you. Is that how you want her to feel? Why can't it be even, Stephen? Okay, honey, I've married you. I don't know what the problem is. What if the problem was reversed? What if it turns out that the man cannot have children and the woman's whole system is good? Now, nobody says in that case, okay, let the woman marry again so that she can have children. No, the divorce will be left in the hands of the man. You see, there are certain interpretations of Islam and the way things are fit together that in a modern society, the women are not going to accept this. If the women accept them, these teachings, your daughters are not going to accept them. If your daughters accept them, your granddaughters are not going to accept them. And I'm not talking about any specific person. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect our children, our grandchildren, and keep them in Islam. But we have to see the signs and read what is happening around us. Look at this girl, Rahaf, who left Saudi Arabia and came to Canada in safety as a refugee. There are many different ways now in which the world is integrated. It's become one global village. And people are not going to accept a past system that is not Islamic. So now we differentiate between what is Islamic and what is not. We go back to the Quran. The Quran teaches us about fairness and justice. Fairness to our wives. Fairness to the children. Fairness and justice for the orphans in society. So that when somebody looks at what you have done, they should look at it and say, aha, this looks good. This is what Muslims are. Muslims are good people. They wouldn't have to do something like the Fifth Estate show to expose something that is going on in the Muslim community. Let us then, Muslims, brothers, sisters, in this new year, let us look forward to how the world is changing and to our place in that changing world. Let us think about how we can make this world better by following what the Quran actually says, by revising some interpretations of human beings who lived in a particular time and a particular place, whose interpretations were valid for that time, but may not be valid for a new and different circumstance. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us to understand His religion and to practice it in the best way possible. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ به تعالى من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن سيدنا محمدا عبد الله ورسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد وصلى الله تعالى على جميع الأنبياء والمرسلين والملائكة المقربين والخلفاء الراشدين أبي بكر وعمر وعثمان وعلي ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. Before I leave this member, there's one thing that relates to the topic that I think is crucial for me to mention. I spoke about how in the past sometimes there was a shortage of men, and so it made sense for a man to have 2, 3, 4 wives. And nowadays, actually, the situation is slightly reversed. If you look at the recent statistics, you will find that the world situation is that there's about 50.4% men compared with 49.6% women. That means there's slightly more men than women in the world today. So if a man were to marry 2, 3, and 4, he might be depriving another man of finding a suitable bride. So you see, the situation has actually changed. So we have to recognize the changed situation and act in a way that is in harmony with the original plan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How do we interpret the ayat that say, خَلَقَكُم مِّن نَفْسٍ وَاحِدَةٍ? He created you from a single soul, وَمِنْهَا زَوْجَهَا, and from it its spouse. So the original situation is one man and one woman. Otherwise, if this was desirable in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, why not create one man with several women right from the very start to show this is the original situation? But no, we are now back to the original situation given the almost equal distribution of men and women in the world. But as I said, there are slightly more men than women in the world today. But let's make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide us and guide the Muslimin and Muslimat and forgive our sins. Allahumma ighfir lana wa li ikhwanina alladhina sabaquna bil iman wa la taj'al fi qulubina ghillan lil ladhina amanu rabbana innaka ra'ufur rahim. Allahumma ighfir lil mu'minina wal mu'minat wal muslimina wal muslimat al ahya'i minhum wal amwat innaka sami'un qaribun mujibud da'awat. Rabbana la tad'a lana dhanban illa ghafarta wa la hamman illa farajta wa la daynan illa qadayta wa la maridan illa shafaita ولا سيما أختنا جاسمين يا رب العالمين ولا ضالا إلا هديته ولا حاجة من حوائج الدنيا والآخرة إلا قضيتها يا أرحم الراحمين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. وأقم الصلاة.